The call from a vacant house. The night it happened, the air had that January bite that makes every sound travel farther than it should. You hear your own tires on wet asphalt like you are dragging a chain behind you. The sky over York County was the color of old television glass, and the clouds hung low enough to reflect the sodium orange streetlights back down at you. I was in my cruiser on the east side, drifting the border where East York gives way to darker roads, less signage, fewer porch lights, more tree line. Springettsbury Township was quiet the way suburbs get quiet at 2:13 a.m. Not peaceful, just paused. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you are the only moving piece on a board. I was finishing a report in my head, already thinking about the coffee I was going to burn my tongue on at the end of shift, when the radio cracked. Unit 12, copy a call. Dispatch used my unit number the same way my mother used my full name when she was serious. Flat, controlled, not alarmed, but intentional. Unit 12, go ahead, I said. A half-second of hiss, then the dispatcher's voice came through. Her name was Mara Hensley. I knew her cadence well enough to tell what she was doing without seeing her. One finger on the keyboard, one hand on her headset, eyes flicking between the CAD screen and the wall clock. Unit 12, respond to a 911 hang-up, she said. Caller provided a name and address, then disconnected. No callback. Address is standby. I waited, watching my dash clock tick forward. Address is Ridge Hollow Road, near the old quarry cut, Mara continued. Caller stated Calvin Dierker. Repeat, Calvin Dierker. No further details. Line dropped. My grip tightened on the steering wheel without me deciding to. Ridge Hollow Road wasn't a place we went for anything good. It wasn't even a place we went for anything normal. People didn't call from Ridge Hollow. People drove out there to do things they did not want witnesses for. Copy, I said. Any history on the location? Another pause, keys clicking faintly in the background as if she was digging through layers. That's the thing, she said, and I heard the slightest change in her tone. Not fear, confusion. The address is flagged vacant in the system, utility shutoffs on record, no residents listed. It's been a while. My eyes went to the navigation unit. No streetlights in that area, no reliable cell coverage either, depending on exactly where you ended up. You want me to still roll it? I asked. You're closest, Mara said. We have to clear the call. I'm sending it as a welfare check until we can confirm. A welfare check. Clean and neutral. Language that meant somebody might be dead, or somebody might be lying, or nobody might be there at all. Copy, en route, I said. As I turned off the main road, the world thinned out. The storefronts and subdivisions disappeared, replaced by stands of leafless trees and long fields that looked like black sheets laid over the earth. The road narrowed. The shoulders crumbled. My headlights caught old snow piles pushed off months ago, hardened into gray lumps. I passed a sign that looked older than me, half buried in brush, no outlet. Someone had spray painted over it years back. The paint had bled down like a slow bruise. Ridge Hollow Road began as a normal two-lane, and then without warning it became something else, patched, cracked, and uneven, as if the county stopped caring about it one budget cycle and never remembered again. I felt my suspension complain with every dip. There was no traffic, no oncoming lights, no houses, just woods and cold. Every few minutes I radioed an update. Unit 12, still en route, I said. Copy, Mara replied. Her voice didn't change. She kept it professional, but I could tell she had her own screen open now, digging into that name, Calvin Dierker. By the time I reached the quarry cut, my stomach had tightened into something hard and quiet. Not panic, not adrenaline. The feeling I get when something in the pattern is wrong and I cannot explain it yet. The quarry was a dark mouth to my right, fenced off with chain link and old warning placards. Beyond it, Ridge Hollow bent into the tree line. My GPS lost confidence, the arrow drifting like it wasn't sure where I was anymore. Then I saw it. A mailbox leaning at an angle like it was tired. No numbers on it, just rust and peeling paint. A driveway opened into the woods. I pulled in. My headlights swept across a clearing and landed on a house that looked like it had been abandoned in a hurry, then forgotten in slow motion. 2 stories, sagging porch, missing shutters, roofline warped like a spine. The windows were dark but not reflective, dirty and filmed over, as if the glass had been breathing for years. The front yard was not a yard anymore. It was weeds and dead vines and the skeletal remains of a garden fence. A swing set stood off to the left, half collapsed, its chains hanging still. I killed the engine. The silence that rushed in was immediate and heavy, like stepping into a room where everyone has stopped talking. I called it in. Unit 12 on scene, residence appears vacant, no lights, no vehicles, I'll make contact. Copy, Mara replied. Be advised, I'm still checking the name. I stepped out. The cold hit my face like a slap. My breath fogged in front of my flashlight beam. Gravel crunched under my boots, loud enough to feel rude. The porch boards creaked under my weight, the sound dry and old. I approached the front door and paused. Something about the door bothered me. It wasn't boarded up, not chained, not nailed shut. It was closed, yes, but it wasn't sealed the way abandoned houses usually are. It looked used. Not recently, but not condemned either. The knob had a shine where hands had touched it. The paint around it was worn in a crescent. I knocked. The sound traveled into the house and died. I knocked again, louder. Nothing. I tested the knob. It turned. I didn't like that. I didn't like it at all. I drew a breath, forced my voice into the tone we're trained to use. Sheriff's office, if anyone's inside, make yourself known. No answer. I pushed the door open. The smell hit first, damp wood, stale dust, a faint metallic tang like pennies and old water. The air was colder inside than outside, as if the house had been storing winter. My flashlight beam cut through the foyer. There was furniture, but it was wrong, like a museum display left to rot. A coat rack with no coats, a table with a bowl of hardened, fossilized something that might have been fruit decades ago. A framed family photo on the wall, tilted and clouded by grime. The floor was covered in dust, thick, undisturbed, except for one thing. A line of footprints. Not mine, not fresh, but clearer than the rest of the dust pattern, as if someone had walked through recently enough to disturb the top layer, but not leave wet prints. The prints led from the hallway toward the back of the house. My pulse moved up a gear. I spoke into my radio quietly. Dispatch, Unit 12. Door was unsecured. I'm making entry. Residence shows signs of old abandonment, but I do have possible recent disturbance. Mara's reply came too fast, like she'd been waiting. Copy. Ethan, listen, I found the name. She used my first name. Dispatchers don't do that unless it matters. What do you have? I asked, my eyes tracking the footprints. A pause. A breath. Calvin Dyerker is deceased. Date of death in our system is 2012. He was 39. For a second, my brain refused it. Then it accepted it too quickly, like it had been expecting something like that. That's not possible, I said, but my voice didn't have conviction. I'm looking at it right now, Mara continued. There's an old case file attached to that address. It's marked closed. Cause listed as accidental drowning. Recovery in the Susquehanna. It's old. It's clean, but it's there. My flashlight beam flicked across a wall where a calendar still hung. The year was too faded to read, but I could see the layout. A child's scribbles, a circle around a date. I swallowed. Any family? I asked. Angela Dyerker listed, Mara said. No current address in our system. The house was tagged vacant in 2014 for unpaid property taxes. It went through county. No utilities since. I looked at the footprints again. They led deeper. My mouth went dry. Stay with me, I said. If this is a prank, someone's inside. If it's not a prank, then I don't know what it is. Mary didn't argue. She just said, I'm here. I moved down the hallway. Each step stirred dust that rose in slow curls, catching the light like smoke. The house felt too quiet for its size. Even abandoned homes usually have a language, wind through cracks, rodents in the walls, a distant drip. This place held its breath. I reached the living room. The furniture was covered in sheets that had yellowed and stiffened over time. A television sat in the corner, an old box model. On the mantel was a row of photographs. I lifted my beam to them. A man with dark hair and a tired smile, a woman holding a baby, a little girl with missing front teeth. Another photo, the man in a work uniform, coal dust on his cheeks, standing with other men near what looked like a mine entrance. My stomach tightened. York County wasn't anthracite country like the Northeast, but we had our own industrial scars. Quarries, factories, pockets of old extraction sites, and communities that shrank when the jobs did. The outskirts held places that were something once and then weren't. I stepped closer to the mantel and saw something else. A thin layer of dust covered everything, but one photo was cleaner than the rest, as if someone had wiped it recently. It was the man, Calvin. His eyes were looking straight at the camera, but something about the expression made my skin prickle. Not fear, not anger. The look of someone who knows something and cannot say it. Behind me, a sound. Soft. A scrape. I snapped my light toward the kitchen doorway. Nothing. But the air moved. A draft, sudden and cold, a sliding across my neck like fingers. I told myself it was the house settling. Old wood, old nails. Then the television turned on. Not a bright modern click, a deep internal thump, like a heart restarting. The screen flared to life with white noise, the static hissing loudly in the dead room. I froze. My hand went to my holster without thinking. The static filled the house, making it feel occupied. I whispered into the radio, "Dispatch, I've got..." The TV just turned on by itself. Mara didn't respond for a second. When she did, her voice was too controlled. "Ethan, there's no power to that house." I stared at the screen. The static wasn't random. It had rhythm. It surged and fell, like breathing. Then, for a fraction of a second, the static cleared into something else. A gray image, unstable, like a camera feed struggling to lock in. I saw a hallway. The hallway I was standing in, and at the end of it, where the back door was, there was a shape, human height, still. My flashlight beam swung down the real hallway. There was nothing. I turned back to the TV. Static again. My pulse hammered hard enough that I felt it in my jaw. "Okay," I said under my breath. "Okay." I moved down towards the kitchen, forced myself to keep moving because standing still felt worse. The footprints led through the kitchen and toward a door that opened into what used to be a mudroom. Beyond that, there was another door. Basement. I shone my light at it. The knob was tarnished. The wood around the frame was scratched like someone had dragged something heavy through it. The air near that door smelled different, colder, wetter, with the sour hint of earth. My radio hissed. Mara's voice came through quiet. "Ethan, I pulled the old report. I'm going to read you something." "Go ahead," I said, my eyes fixed on the basement door. Case notes. Original responding officer wrote, "Caller reported hearing movement in basement, believed trespassers, requested welfare check of spouse and child. Cal disconnected." I blinked. "That was Calvin's call?" I asked. "Yes," Mara said. "Same address, same pattern. He called, gave name, asked for help, then disconnected. Officers responded hours later. Location, empty." A chill crawled up my spine. "That's impossible," I said, but I already knew the pattern. I already felt it. "The report says the house was unsecured," Mara continued. "Inside, signs of struggle. Missing persons filed for Angela and the child. Then, weeks later, Calvin's body was recovered in the river. Case closed as drowning. Missing persons eventually marked inactive." My flashlight beam trembled slightly as I lowered it. "So the call that started it," I said slowly, "was never resolved." Mara didn't answer right away, but her silence was an answer. I put my hand on the basement knob. It was cold enough to sting. I turned it. The door opened with a slow, heavy groan like it didn't want to. Basement stairs descended into darkness, narrow and steep. My flashlight caught the first few steps. Dust, but also marks, scuffs, like feet had gone down and up. I went down carefully, one step at a time. The air changed with each step, thicker and wetter. The smell of damp concrete and something metallic grew stronger. Halfway down, my flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. At the bottom, the basement opened into a low-ceiling space with exposed beams. Shelves lined one wall holding jars of rusted nails, old paint cans, tools that had become artifacts. A workbench sat in the corner, and on that workbench, in the center of my beam, was a manila folder. Clean, no dust, no mildew, like it had been placed there recently. I approached it slowly. The folder had writing on it in black marker. Dieter. My throat tightened. I lifted the folder with gloved hands and it felt dry, intact, too new to be down here. Inside were papers, old but preserved, photocopies, notes, a printed map of the area, and photographs. Not family photos, evidence photos. The first showed the basement floor, a section of concrete where something had been chipped away. The second showed a dark stain near a drain. The third showed a handprint on a wall, smeared and desperate. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A photo of a badge. My badge. Not literally mine, but the same type, York County, a deputy's badge. The photo showed it lying on the basement floor beside a flashlight and a set of keys. I didn't remember losing anything, but the implication wasn't that I had, it was that someone before me had. My radio crackled violently, as if the basement itself was trying to talk over the frequency. Mara's voice came through distorted. "Ethan, are you okay?" I couldn't answer yet. My eyes were on the last page in the folder. It was a statement, handwritten. "If you were reading this, it means you came. They said no one would come. They said they could make the call disappear." My mouth went dry. The handwriting was careful, controlled, as if written by someone forcing themselves to be calm. "They put my wife and my daughter down here. They said it was an accident. They said I could keep my job if I didn't talk. I called, and every time it disconnected." I swallowed hard, my breath loud in the basement. The next line made my skin go cold. I didn't drown. The flashlight in my hand flickered again. This time it went out for a full second, then snapped back on. When it returned, something had changed. A chair that had been tucked under the workbench was now pulled out slightly, angled toward me, as if someone had sat down and then stood up. I backed up without meaning to, my boots scraping concrete. "Dispatch," I said into the radio, forcing my voice steady. "Mara, I found a folder in the basement. It's evidence. It's a statement." "Ethan," Mara said, and her voice was tighter now. "What kind of evidence?" Before I could answer, I heard a sound behind me. Not a scrape, not a creak, a breath. Cold and close. I spun, flashlight up, and my beam landed on the far corner where the concrete met the foundation wall. There was nothing. But on the wall, appearing as if drawn by invisible fingers through grime, words appeared. Not carved, not painted, written in clean lines through grime. "Look up." My heartbeat punched against my ribs. I lifted my flashlight beam to the ceiling joists. At first, I saw nothing but wood and shadow. Then my light caught something that didn't belong. A loop of old rope tucked above a beam, partially hidden behind insulation. My stomach twisted. The rope wasn't new, but it was positioned like someone had tried to hide it, not like someone had stored it. I moved closer, my light steady now. All my focus narrowed into that one place. Tucked above the beam was more than rope. There was a bundle wrapped in plastic and taped tight. Old plastic, yellowed and brittle, the kind used for storage. I reached up, my fingers numb, and pulled it down carefully. The tape crackled. The plastic smelled faintly of chemicals and time. I peeled it open. Inside were bones. Small bones. And something else. A child written in clean lines through grime. "Look up." My heartbeat punched against my ribs. I lifted my flashlight beam to the ceiling joists. At first, I saw nothing but wood and shadow. Then my light caught something that didn't belong. a loop of old rope tucked above a beam, partially hidden behind insulation. My stomach twisted. The rope wasn't new, but it was positioned like someone had tried to hide it, not like someone had stored it. I moved closer, my light steady now. All my focus narrowed into that one place. Tucked above the beam was more than rope. There was a bundle wrapped in plastic and taped tight. Old plastic, yellowed and brittle, the kind used for storage. I reached up, my fingers numb, and pulled it down carefully. The tape crackled. The plastic smelled faintly of chemicals and time. I peeled it open. Inside were bones. Small bones. And something else. A child's hair clip, faded pink, still clinging to strands of hair. For a moment, the basement felt like it tilted. My brain tried to reject what my eyes were telling it, but the evidence was too physical, too real. My stomach lurched. "Mara," I said, and my voice sounded far away. "I need additional units and a supervisor. Start a crime scene. I just located remains." Her inhale was audible over the radio. "Copy," she said, voice shaking around the edges now. "I'm notifying command. Stay on the line. Ethan, stay on the line." The words hit me in a way they shouldn't have. Stay on the line. Still on the line. The hair on my arms rose as if the phrase belonged to something else, something older. I forced myself to breathe, forced my training to surface. Scene safety, preserve evidence, do not contaminate, secure perimeter. But as I backed away from the bundle, my flashlight beam caught the basement floor again. Dust. And a fresh set of footprints had appeared beside mine. Bare footprints. They started near the corner wall and ended right behind where I had been standing. Then, slowly, they faded, not disappearing like magic, but being reclaimed by the dust in reverse, as if time was rewinding over them. My knees felt weak. I swallowed, tasted iron, and realized I had bitten the inside of my mouth. "Mara," I said again, steadier now, professional instinct overriding fear. "Do you see anyone in the house?" "No," I said. "No one living." I didn't add the rest, because how do you explain that the house felt occupied by someone who had been dead for 14 years, someone who had learned the only way to be heard was to become a call that the system could not ignore? I gathered myself and moved up the basement stairs, one careful step at a time. When I reached the kitchen, the television was off. Not muted. Off. The living room was dark again, as if the static never happened, but the air still had that cold pressure, like something had recently moved through it. As I passed the mantel, I glanced at Calvin's cleaned photograph. There was dust on it now. A thin layer, even and complete, as if no one had touched it for years. Outside, I stood on the porch and looked out over the yard. My cruiser sat in the clearing with its lights casting blue-white flashes against dead trees. The world beyond the property line was just woods and dark. My radio kept talking. Units dispatched, supervisor en route, state police notified, county detectives awakened, procedure unfolding like a checklist. And yet I couldn't stop thinking about the call. The original call in 2012, logged and unresolved. A man asking for help, a house unsecured, a basement full of truth, a case closed anyway. A system that accepted the absence as a resolution. I wondered how many times Calvin had tried after that, after the reports went quiet and the paperwork decided his life for him. How many times he had called into a line that disconnected, into a system that moved on. Then tonight, the call went through. Not because the system suddenly cared, but because Mara answered, typed the name, sent the unit, and the routine did the rest. It did not question whether the voice belonged to a living man.
It did not require proof of breath. It simply logged and dispatched, the way it always did. And for the first time in 14 years, somebody came. I stood in the cold and watched my breath rise in front of me. And I realized the most unsettling part was not the footprints, or the television, or the writing on the wall. It was the idea that the system was capable of solving this all the time. It just needed the call to remain open long enough to be heard. Behind me, from somewhere deep inside the house, I heard a single sound. Soft, final, almost tender. A phone receiver settling back into the cradle. Then nothing. Just an empty house again. A vacant property in a forgotten pocket of York County, Pennsylvania, and a case file that was about to be reopened because a dead man had finally stayed on the line long enough to force the record to tell the truth.